Now, the pre-COVID world will not return, and Singapore has to make tough decisions and take steps to confront the uncertain future. A Trade and Industry Minister Chun Sing said this on Tuesday after Singapore registered its worst ever quarterly GDP performance that was poorer than expected.
Well, he also said that the government's revised full-year forecast of 5 to 7% contraction could also mean wiping out up to 3 years of past economic growth. Well, for more, we're joined this morning by Singapore Trade and Industry Minister Chun Sing. Minister Chun, thank you for joining us. Now, the latest economic and employment data has painted, well, a rather gloomy picture of the situation, which, some experts say could actually worsen. How worried are you about the economic and geopolitical backdrop? Because in your words, you did say that we're never going back to the pre-COVID world.
Well, I think there are three things that will determine the trajectory for our growth in the coming months, two of which are pretty much within our control, but one not within our control. Let me explain. The first set of issues that we have to grapple with is whether we can progressively and sustainably open our domestic economy. We are making good progress, but we are never complacent because we have seen the experience of other countries where they have experienced recurring waves of infection, causing them to have to repeat the shutdown again. So if we can open safely and sustainably, we will be able to progressively recover from the third and fourth quarter this year. Now that is within our control. The second factor that is not within our control is the external demand. And what we have seen is that the recurring waves of infection across different parts of the world have caused a slowdown in their economy and disruption to the supply chains. Now, we hope that they will also be able to control the infections within their country so that progressively the entire global system can recover together. But this factor is not entirely within our control. The third and most important set of decisions that we must make, and that is within our control, is how we are able to take the tough decisions now, redeploy our capital, land, labor, and other factors of production into more productive areas of work, so that we do not wait out for the global recovery to happen, but instead we take proactive actions to prepare ourselves for living in a COVID world or in a post-COVID world. So two out of the three factors are within our control. One is not within our control.
Minister Chun, you just talked about tough decisions to make. What do they entail? And can you tell us what are the trade-offs or even political costs for that?
I've shared briefly on Tuesday that there are three archetypes of firms that we are talking about. And this is where the hard decisions comes in. The first archetype or the first group of firms is the easiest to manage. They have a growing market. This includes people in the ICT sector, biopharma, and precision engineering. Actually, through the COVID situation, their markets are growing. And with that, they will be able to create more jobs. And we will support them to do more because as they expand their markets and their products range, they will create more opportunities for fellow Singaporeans. So that's the easy part. The second part is a bit painful, and that is the group of firms that are in industries where the demand has shrunk temporarily. But we do expect them to come back on stream maybe in about a year's time. Some of these could include retail, F&B, and so forth. But in the meantime, they might have to consolidate some of their operations and pivot into new products. And then they will have to help their workers get trained up to meet the demands of the new products and services that they are going to serve the customers and the markets. So that is still relatively easy. But the third group of companies are the ones that will be the hardest hit. Their demand is not likely to come back in the short to medium term. And we'll have to make some tough decisions on how we can help them pivot into new products and new markets. For example, people in the social entertainment industry. Until and unless we can come up with a new model of how we can do business safely in this COVID environment, it'll be very difficult for us to imagine them coming back online like what they used to do in the previous operating model. And this is where we have to make some hard decisions together with the unions, the labor movement, the trade associations and the employers to see how we can help them pivot into new products and new markets. So these are some of the tough decisions that we have to make. From a personal perspective, I think we can all understand that if we are the entrepreneur, we will all want to believe that our products, our services continue to be relevant because we have spent so much time building up our company to serve the market. It is very difficult for some entrepreneurs to come to terms with the fact that the world has changed and we have to pivot into new markets and new products. And this is where we are committed to help the entrepreneurs, the firms affected, to pivot into new markets and to do the best for themselves and for the workers that are with them.
Minister Chun, it's great to hear that the government's doing its level best to assist, the most affected sectors of the economy. And I just wanted to bring up your example of sort of the entertainment industry and sort of how you can help them, because, I mean, it's quite clear with the social distancing measures put in place, not more than 5 people, it must be hard for those in entertainment or even the F&B or in the bar industry, nightclub industry. But if we do get the possibility, and we've heard really lately that, there's some vaccines under development here. If the vaccines come through, won't all these industries anyway recover sharply? Because if we do get a vaccine, surely that solves the issue that these particular sectors are facing.
Yes, we are all looking forward to the vaccine, but I will just share a couple of data points for us to understand the challenges ahead. Number one, it is not at all clear as how soon the vaccine will come about. We hear encouraging news across the world by different countries of different efforts, and we hope that some of them will come through soon. Now, second, even if a vaccine is found soon enough, it will still take us some time to produce it in the quantity we need to share it with the whole world and get people vaccinated. And that is going to take time. So I think we have to be realistic about the timeline which the vaccine can come about, produce, and get distributed to all the people around the world. But having said that, beyond the vaccine, from my own personal perspective, I think we need another effort. And that is to see if we can come up with the rapid test kit as soon as possible. Today, we already have the technology for rapid testing, but the problem is one of scaling it up to the numbers required. So let me give an example. Supposing we have a rapid test kit that can give us a result in, say, less than an hour, and we can do this at scale, at 200-300 people at the same time. Now, that would mean that we can reopen our airports and for flights to resume. It will also mean that travel can resume. That would be a great help to the entire world. If air travel is able to resume, then the business connections, the people-to-people connection, the MICE activities, the tourism activities can resume. So I am personally not just hoping for a vaccine, I'm also personally hoping for a rapid test kit that is affordable and can be scaled up so that we can resume the tourism industry.
Yeah, we certainly hope so, Minister. And of course, DPM and Finance Minister Heng Swee-Keat has reaffirmed support for workers and companies and is set to address the issue of whether existing support measures would be extended. I mean, should we also expect sort of a new measures, another stimulus package perhaps? And would they require tapping on past reserves again?
I would frame the issue slightly differently. Indeed, both MOF and MTI, and of course with the rest of the economic agencies, are thinking very hard how to help our companies. But there are two important points that we must remember. First, as we mentioned, there are different types of companies, at least 3 archetypes that we were talking about. And we need different measures for the different types of companies. Some to help them grow faster, some to help them consolidate their capacity while preserving their core capabilities, and some to help them pivot into new products and new markets. So the measures are quite different and must be targeted in order for them to be useful to the respective companies. So that's one data point that we must remember. The second set of issues that we must remember is that it is not so much about stimulating demand, because we know that domestic demand, we can pretty much have some influence through our own measures within the country. But the larger issue, the larger challenge that we are facing has to do with the external demand, which a stimulus package would not be entirely helpful. No matter what we do domestically, it'll be very hard for us to replace the external demand that we used to have. So what we need to do is really a package to help our companies pivot into new markets, into new products range, so that we can make a living, in fact, seize the new opportunities in the new environment rather than to perhaps think of going back to the previous environment that we were used to before. And if we can do that faster than anybody else, then I think we will emerge stronger from this crisis. And there are many opportunities now in Asia Pacific as people reshuffle their production chains, their supply chains. So this is where we need to seize the opportunities and make sure that as the global companies reshuffle their global footprint of production and supply chains, that some of them will land in Singapore. At the same time, we must make sure that we continue to defend the regional HQs, the factories that have been planted here, so that we can retain the jobs for our people, as many as possible.
Minister Chun, how important is it to sort of strike that right balance when you're looking at structuring the stimulus packages and providing support for all those countless companies and also employees out there that really desperately need help, and yet also maintaining that fiscal prudence here in Singapore, because we are in extraordinary times, as you well know. And if you take a look at across the world, literally nearly every single country is kitchen sinking their stimulus packages, throwing it in terms of monetary policy, fiscal policy, taking on huge levels of debt. I mean, this is, multilateral across the world. Is there a case to be made that perhaps Singapore could take a little bit more of its reserves in allocating to these stimulus packages, as we're seeing most other countries do that as well?
Just to share 2 points. One is that on a per capita basis, I think Singapore has put in much more than any other country in the world. And that comes to the second point, which is that we are very thankful that our forefathers have left us the depth of reserves that we have been able to utilize today. Otherwise, as you have mentioned, we might be having to borrow from the open market, and that would have passed down to the next generation a huge debt, which will not be easy to clear. Now, having said that, notwithstanding the fiscal resources that we have, we must still be prudent, as you mentioned. The question for us is, how do we support the companies to make that transition, yet at the same time, take the necessary steps to position ourselves for the long term? As I was sharing just now, there are tremendous opportunities now for us to attract a new generation of investments. Now, in the past, people might be thinking about investment by looking for places where it is cheapest to produce their products. So cost and price are the primary considerations. But going forward, and having been through the geopolitical tensions of late, having seen the situation of the COVID and the disruption that it caused, I think people are increasingly looking for places to site their headquarters and production sites, not just based on cost. Instead, they are looking at places where there is long-term policy consistency and coherence. They are looking for a place where the people are skilled and there is a strong tripartite relationship that will minimize the disruption to their production. They are also looking for places that can allow them to connect with the rest of the world seamlessly in the realm of air and sea freight, data, finance, regulations, talent flow, and so forth. And very importantly, they have seen the importance of a country being able to keep its export going, even through the depth of the crisis, instead of taking protectionist measures to protect their short-term interests at the expense of their long-term commitments to the people who have planted their factories in the countries. And for these reasons, Singaporeans and Singapore can be confident that we have some strong fundamentals on our side to compete with the rest of the world beyond the conventional matrix of price and cost. And this will put us in good stead. Now, having said that, we will nevertheless still need to continue to use our resources, including our fiscal resources, carefully to position ourselves for the long haul. In fact, at this point in time, when I speak to many of the businesses and the trade associations and chambers, they are looking for signs of whether Singapore is still committed to planning for the long term, investing in the long term. And two of the things that gives them the greatest confidence of our commitment to the long term is our investment in our people in terms of training and skills upgrade, and the investment in our long-term infrastructure, including the digital architecture and infrastructure. So these are things that we can do well to invest our resources in, to give people the confidence that Singapore is a place worthy of their investment for the long haul. And in time to come, this will create more and better jobs for fellow Singaporeans.
Minister Chan, we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy morning and day to join us on Asia First. Thank you very much.